What's up, YouTube fam? It's your boy Jamal, the Credit Protector. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing things a little different. I am introducing you all to some amazing entrepreneurs, and during these interviews, you're going to be able to learn more about them and be able to see real life use cases for both personal and business credit. Today, I have the Hype Goddess, who also has a YouTube channel, The Real About Entrepreneurship, Miss Lameka. How you doing, Lameka?
I'm great, Jamal. Thank you for having me on. I like being on this end of podcasting, of interviewing. So thank you. I'm good.
Yes, it's a huge switch because, for those who may not know, I was actually featured as a guest on her channel, The Real About Entrepreneurship, where we did a multi-episode series to help entrepreneurs build their business credit from scratch. So it's exciting to have you here, Lameka, and in this way, I can let you shine and share your expertise in the different things that you've been a part of and what you do, and introduce you to my audience.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm trying to make sure you guys see my shirt. It says "Tall never looks so good." That is a trademark that I have. As Jamal said, I am Lameka from The Real About Entrepreneurship, where I just share different aspects of entrepreneurship. I talk with different people. As Jamal mentioned, he was on my channel because I like to talk about the money piece of it, because a lot of people leave that part out. And everybody talks about how to start a business with bad credit. Well, that can be challenging. It can be done, but it's challenging. And so I like talking to entrepreneurs. And so that's really what my channel is about. I share my journey more so right now with my mobile home business. And I also have my business, Hype Goddess, which I've had since 2007. And so hopefully I will be highlighting that more of my channel. But right now we all talking about mobile homes over there.
I know right now you focus on mobile homes, but let's give people a little bit more backstory. Like, how long have you actually been an entrepreneur?
So I guess my backstory is I'm tall, I'm 6'1", and I've always had like ideas around being an entrepreneur, and then obviously being tall, coming out of college, not playing basketball anymore, and going into going into corporate, I had to wear something other than sweatpants and that kind of thing. I needed some real clothes. And so that presented a challenge. And so it took me several years. I thought I was going to open up a boutique, but then when I went to go and find who I was going to buy from and buy the clothes from to put it in the boutique, I found that there were very few clothing lines that were for tall women. And what I did find, they did not fit the style, and the overall fit did not work. So that led me down a path of creating my own clothing line. I have no experience in design. I don't know how to sew. I don't know how to thread a needle. I don't have any manufacturing background, like any of that. I just decided that I was going to create clothing that made me feel good and made me feel confident, being that people were going to already be looking at me anyway.
With that clothing brand, how much would you say you're generating in revenue today?
Right now, zero, because I'm not doing anything. It is actually
You're not doing anything with it.
I am not doing anything with it right now. What I decided was, well, actually in 2016, my father died suddenly. And so that puts a lot of things in perspective. And at that point, I just decided that I didn't want to give as much energy to Hype Goddess that I had been giving it. I had opportunities to sell it, and I decided that that was not what I wanted to do. And so while people can still shop and those types of things, or you can still find the website, you're not necessarily able to shop. Well, you can find things like this. So I guess I'm generating some revenue, but not enough to be like, oh, this is like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not what I was doing before. I think at the height of Hype Goddess, we produce right at about $500,000 in revenue for Hype Goddess, and that was me making everything. I started out with jeans, and I made jeans from scratch, or from, well, a lot of times when people think of a clothing line, they think of right now of t-shirts, by you buying a t-shirt and you putting, you know, something on that. To me, that's merch. That's not necessarily a clothing line. So I always like to define it and say, I created the jeans. These are my patterns. I had pattern makers. I had our label markers and those types of things that we have to do to make them. Our fit model. So we made everything specific for tall women. But I took a break in 2016, and I've just, you know, kind of figured out my footing. And then I moved away from really wearing jeans and dresses and all that kind of stuff. And I'm more so moved to t-shirts. It's primarily what I like to wear now. The things that when I started Hey Goddess, I made a pair of jeans because I didn't have jeans. That's why I started with the jeans. It's because I didn't have a pair of jeans that I wanted to do. Well, I don't wear jeans as much, and I decided I didn't want to make them anymore. So yeah, we're in a holding pattern is what we're in right now.
That's the great thing about when you own something, is yours. You can pivot and create something literally that is designed for you. Because a lot of times the easiest thing to do is sell to yourself. Starting a clothing brand seems like a very intimidating and daunting task. I actually used to do some like fashion blogging and writing and things of that nature. And just listening to some of the trials and tribulations of starting a clothing brand, especially when we're talking about financing and things like credit, it's, you know, it seemed like I was like, wow, they're always impressed with designers who can hold their own and grow their brands. So give us a little backstory in regards to, because this is a channel about credit, right? Give us some backstory about how was it being able to finance the brand as you grew it and brought it up to scale. Were you using credit at the time? Were you using just your own money? And if you were just doing everything out of pocket, knowing what you know now, how much of a difference would having credit and using credit, how much of a difference would that make?
Oh,
or
man.
having?
Oh, yeah. Well, one, I wish I had found you years ago. I was looking for you, but then a lot of people were not sharing information the way information is shared now. Even for people that I was paying for this information, I still was not able to get it in the manner that the free information that I've gotten now. I've paid for that in the past and still didn't get that. So for many years, I funded Hey Goddess out of my pocket, which is actually why I decided another part of why I decided to take a break was because I still hadn't figured out business credit. So from 2007, even all the way up to 2016, I still had not figured out the business credit piece of it. So Hey Goddess was funded out of my pocket. So whenever, whenever we had revenue that went back into creating another collection of clothing. And as you know, tall women are a minority group.
Absolutely.
And so you don't have a lot of people. You have a set market, and even in tall women, I'm selling to a very even more niche market inside of a niche market for a subset. And so those are the things that I learned. So I funded Hey Goddess. I funded Hey Goddess out of my pocket, with the exception of probably about, I don't know, I'm going to say less than $30,000, and that came later. That came much later. And the $30,000 pretty much makes up crowdfunding. I did a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign. Wish I had done that sooner than later. I wish I had done that sooner than later. I did a Kickstarter campaign. I did I did what was called 100 UE. I won the Black Enterprise had an elevator pitch contest. And I actually I won a second place in an elevator pitch contest. And I can't remember. It was less than $5,000 what I won at the elevator pitch contest. So I won that. And then a part of winning the elevator pitch contest, there was a group out there called 100 Urban Entrepreneurs, and their goal was to fund 100 urban entrepreneurs. And I think at that time they were giving out they were doing $10,000. And so I got $10,000 from them, and that's it. Outside of that, it was me funding the business on my own. And again, those things didn't come. I think the 100 Urban Entrepreneurs, that may have been 2013, maybe. And the or 2010, I don't know. And then the crowdfunding campaign, I think that may have been 2014, 2013, 2014. But I had started High Goddess in 2006. So yeah.
Got it. What are some things about starting a clothing brand because starting a clothing brand, and you mentioned the difference between, starting a real clothing brand and what you would just consider to be merch, which is just t-shirts, is very enticing for a lot of people. What would you say are some of like two major considerations that people should keep in mind before they decide, or when they decide that, hey, I want to jump into starting my own clothing brand, or I want to get into merch?
It's all about marketing. It has nothing really to do with your clothing, because people come to me all the time. Oh, I have this, I want to do this design. The design does not matter. It really boils down to, do you have an audience? Have you figured out how to reach that audience? What marketing have you done to be able to sell to an audience? Obviously, because I sold direct to customer, when I first started High Goddess, Nordstrom used to have these large size shoe sales. And I travel a lot for work. And so this one particular one, I had my street team ready. So I was down in South Florida, and I was scheduled to fly back to Dallas that day. So I got up that morning, I hit up 2 Nordstrom Racks in South Florida. I had my street team at Nordstrom Racks here in Dallas. And then I came back and I went to the closest Nordstrom Rack that was to the airport when I got back, because tall women typically have large size feet. I went there. At that time, I didn't have my name, anything. I was writing like, here's my name, here's my email address and my phone number. I don't know the name of this yet, but I'm going to be doing this. Okay, you give me your information. If I give you my information, like literally that's what I was doing. And so I had to, I knew I had a problem with getting clothing, but I needed to make sure I understood that there were other people like me, that there was a need for it. So when you're starting a clothing line, I have a friend who I told not to start a clothing line, and she did it anyways. And the one thing that I tell her is you have to build your audience, your email list. You have to build the audience. It's not so much about social media, because especially if you're a niche brand and you're not a celebrity or whatever, it really boils down to having the information of your people in your possession, in your ownership, so that you can talk to them when you want to talk to them, versus when a social media algorithm decides to put your stuff in front of that person. So marketing and reaching your audience is big, and building that list, whether that's online or offline. And then the other thing would be having your money together. Like how are you going to fund these things? Not to say that you have to have a large amount of money, but how are you going to go about, funding it? Now, I know that I use credit cards, but I use my own personal credit cards. Now I know better than, I know now to get some zero interest business credit cards, or to get a business line of credit and those types of things. So I would definitely say, make sure you have your personal credit up to par, or while you're building your marketing, because those are things you can do fairly inexpensively, is to build your personal credit, make sure your personal credit is in order so that you can get the business credit.
Now, it was something else that you mentioned that I want to highlight for people too, is that tenacity that you also had because especially nowadays, so many people do rely solely on the algorithm, and we're spending hundreds of hours trying to figure out pixels and funnels and SEO and how to go viral and all this other stuff. And you said, well, I found a in-person event where my audience, I knew this is where my audience was going to be, and I just pulled up like, hey, this me, I'm outside, and you just went for it in real time, in real person. I think, that's another huge thing that people don't consider. Like, there's so much push to do so many things online, digital real estate, ebooks, that it seems like it's almost the in-person face-to-face business is almost like undervalued these days, because there's such a large push to build an online community. People forget that real people still exist where you are. you know Now, going to the financing, and even let's transition over. Well, let me ask you this. So you're doing all this out of pocket, and you're in the beginning stages. You don't have the same knowledge base that you have now. How did this actually impact your credit, building this new brand from scratch out of pocket?
Whew, let me tell you. Oh my God.
Let's get to nitty gritty. Let's keep it real, right?
Listen,
Let's keep it real.
When people would email me and say, I can't afford your jeans because XYZ. I don't want to get canceled, so I'm not going to say what XYZs are. I'm just going to say just XYZ. And
right.
I would have to say, these are the choices that I made. I decided that I wanted to create a clothing line, and you decided that these were the things that you wanted to do with your life. And these jeans cost what they cost. Like my jeans on average were $129. So not expensive, but not inexpensive at the same time. It's right there.
Right.
It's right there in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And because I'm not producing these mass quantities, I'm doing small batches.
Right.
It is expensive. So for me to buy fabric, I'm having to shell out just fabric and thread and buttons and rivets and all those kinds of things. That's easily $10,000.
Wow.
Easily $10,000 just right there. Okay. But at that point in my life, I just, money was, I'm good at making money. Money was just coming in. So it really didn't matter. So I'm just like, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
And then when money would, slow down coming in, then obviously I would switch over to credit. And so, now my, at that time, I wasn't versed so much to say my debt to income ratio or my utilization is high. Like I wasn't thinking about those things. So I had high utilization for many years. But because I didn't know how to go and get business credit, I knew enough to know, okay, now I need another 0% interest credit card. So let me ask my dad if I can transfer this over to his credit card so I can get this, you know what I mean?
Right. Do what you gotta do.
Yeah, so my utilization was high. And if it was in between a season where, sales, maybe had slowed down and it wasn't as fast, but I need to produce for the next season, then it was a juggling act to be able to find another personal 0 interest credit card to be able to, fund the next season while you're waiting on those sales to come in. So right. I don't know if I answered your question, but high utilization was definitely there.
Got it. And so how did you transition to mobile real estate or mobile homes? Because that's like totally different. Like it's,
I know.
I can't even say it's a 180. It's just totally different. It's totally different.
As I was thinking about it, when you said, tell your story, your entrepreneur story, I thought, I left a major part out. So before I ever started Hype Goddess, I was in real estate. I built and rehabbed homes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I owned about 30 plus homes at that time, traditional single family homes that I had either rehabbed or that I had built, and I kept, some of those for rentals, and I sold some of those off. And obviously we know this was, well, when I owned it, I started back in about 2002. And we all know, well, everybody doesn't know, but for the most part, people know what happened around that 2007, 2008, 2009 timeframe. Well,
I was gonna say for our younger viewers, those that may be, under 25, what happened in 2000, 2007, 2008?
So,
What actually happened?
People they was giving out loans left and right, and that wasn't the value of these houses. And now, the I forgot what they call it, the Great Recession or whatever they called it then. The bottom kind of fell out, and the majority of my homes were on Section 8, and this was one of the very few times that Section 8 had cut their rents. So
hold on. Time out for me. Because when we listening to the gurus on here, right? That's why it's good to talk to real entrepreneurs doing real things. We're not trying to hype nobody. We're not here to try and sell a program or ebook. We're literally here to talk and just give y'all what's really happening. So when you listen to the gurus say, man, Section 8 is a gold mine. It's guaranteed money every month. It's going to be consistent. Ain't nothing happening. You're going to survive. But you're saying that sometimes they actually lower the rent?
Yeah, it's consistent until it ain't. It's consistent until it ain't. Yeah.
Until it ain't.
So they cut the rents. And so obviously I was able to sustain it for a year and a half. But at that point, I thought myself, like, I'm draining my reserves and I don't see a way out. At this point, I got to either, find some sellers, or I have to do short sales, or I have to let them go into foreclosure. And then obviously what's popular now in real estate is called subject to. I sold some of those on subject to, and they still went to foreclosure. So in my head, I was like, I should have just kept them and just kept collecting the check, because they still went to foreclosure. What was I? Now hindsight is 2020. But so actually, I got into real estate because my family had, my parents, owned rental properties. My grandmother owned rental property. So I was very familiar with the fact of owning rentals, but that actually wasn't what I initially wanted to do. I wanted to, now the terminology is the BRRRR strategy, or house hack. That's the new terminology. Back then we just said, buy a house, live in it, sell it, and go and buy another house and do the same thing over and over again. And so that's what I initially wanted to do. Let some people talk me into getting these rentals and doing that kind of thing. Before you know it, I had a portfolio of rental properties, because the idea was that would fund my business to start Hype Goddess. That was the thought process, is that it would fund my business to start Hype Goddess, because I started Hype Goddess in 2007. This is when so I had been in the real estate for a while, and this is, a part when I realized, I'm getting ready to lose it. I might as well, pivot to, go over here to start this business. So, so that's I guess kind of how I got into mobile homes. And so I took obviously several years off of being in real estate, where I was just primarily focused on Hype Goddess and growing that business, but I always wanted to get back into it. But I took a major hit in my credit. So we were talking about credit. I go back to that. So I took a major hit in my credit in 2009. So I had to rebuild that credit. I was starting Hype Goddess. So, luckily I had credit cards, and I had lines of credit. Luckily my credit lines and those types of things, that particular thing was not cut, but I did, lose those homes, and I had, access to be able to, tap into some money in other places. And so I maneuvered and I went back to work full time, because I was, at that point I was building homes full time. That's why I tell people, do not leave your job. Okay.
Don't leave your job.
Yeah.
So when you had,
I was building. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry to cut you off. So at this time, when you had the 30 homes and everything, that's all you were doing. The rents, the Section 8 was coming in. That's all you needed. And then it was just like the bubble burst. And then it turned into something similar to like what we would call a fire sale.
Very much so. Very much so. Like, I literally was in the house curtains drawn. It was dark. Credit report in my hand, looking at it, and was just like, this is no more. Like, my mom was like, it'll be okay, it'll come back. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I think I still have that credit report. I think my score at that time may have been like a 760 or something like that. Because I never had an 800. Once you get to a certain, in my opinion, once you reach a certain number, it really doesn't matter. Once you're in the good, mid high 700s, it really doesn't matter that at that point. You're really gonna get the same.
750 and up.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Saying you have an 800 is solely for bragging rights. But yeah, you can basically finance the same things with a 750 that you can finance with an 800.
Yeah. So I think my credit score was somewhere like 760, 762, 765, somewhere like that. And so I was just sitting there looking at the credit report. I'm just like, oh my God, you are not going to be able to do anything. And my mom was just like, my mom and dad were like, it's credit, it'll be fine. I'm like, no, it's not.
They like, we've been through this before.
Right.
So, and it's great that you have parents that's been through it, and they could just help you understand and lighten that blow a little bit, even though, they're going to let us go through what we go through emotionally.
Right.
But it's nice to have people that's been there, done that, know. So you already had like real estate mentors, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. But I was like, no, this is not how this is supposed to happen. Like, so they helped me through that. They patted me on my shoulder and said, okay, pick yourself up and come on, let's go do whatever you get ready to go do. So I went and got a corporate job, went back, got a corporate job, and rebuilt my credit while at the same time building Height Goddess. I built Height Goddess while I was working full time. I've always traveled for work, so that allowed me to build my network of people. I would be in Chicago, I would be in South Florida, I would be in New York, I would be in LA, I would be in San Diego, I would be in all these different cities, and it just so happened to work that way that these are all places where tall women typically are. I was in Seattle. I was everywhere that typically you see a lot more tall women.
Got it.
So that allowed me to build my brand organically. And so because I was already there for work, I was able to not have to spend my money to be able to go and do these things, because I would schedule things while I was going to already be there to help me, to lessen the cost that I personally had to spend. Another
way to leverage other people's money.
Hey, listen, I was creative.
Gotta love OPM.
Yes, I look back at it and I was like, how did you do all of that? Like, I would have my own suitcase, but I would have my suitcase with my fabric. I would have and then once I got samples, I would have my suitcase with my samples. And then I had my computer bag. Like, I'm carrying around, all this luggage. I was like, I don't know how I did that.
So now we're talking about, that was your background in real estate. You went through 08 hit, the bubble burst in the housing market. Everything was going crazy. You went back into the workforce. You're growing your brand. All of this is still without any in-depth knowledge of business credit, right?
Yes.
So now we move forward, 2023. When and how did you get introduced to business credit?
So even during that time, I was always looking. I was always asking people. However, no one was sharing the information. It was just kind of like, and once you hear it so many times, and when somebody tell you, like, I know that's not gonna work, like, that's not it. You're not giving me anything that I didn't already know from my own research or from talking to people. Like, nobody could tell me like what to do. And so,
do you think, sorry to cut you off, was it that you think genuinely they were trying to gatekeep, or this is knowledge that people literally just didn't know? People just knew how to make money using their own money.
I think it was a combination of both. Because I was asking people that either said they had business credit, or I was asking people who said they know how to help you get business credit. So I was working with those people. So I think it was a combination of both.
Okay. So you were looking, how long did it take before you actually had like that breakthrough with getting the information that you were actually looking for?
Probably like everybody else, we were at home in 2020 and I had time. I had time in 2020 to now say, okay, I have time to, I'm not traveling, because up until 2020, I was traveling every week. And so, I was super busy. Obviously I was still taking time to learn it, but I didn't have the type of time that I had in 2020. So I literally took my last flight in February of 2020. I was just telling someone the other day, I was like, I haven't been to that airport since 2020 because I fly out of a different airport now. I was like, I would have never thought I would say I haven't been to that airport in 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
So, so, kind of similar to, other people when they were at home in 2020, things that they had been meaning to do, they had time for. And so I used that time to decide what was it that I want to do. Another point where I said, am I going to pick back up and move full steam ahead with High Goddess? Or, you know what, actually, I have been wanting to do real estate. I think this is the perfect time for me to get back into real estate. And so that's what I decided to do. Was I said, okay, if I'm going to get back into real estate and I need to, understand what is out there from a business credit standpoint, but I still didn't know because it was real estate. And so everybody says, oh, I know about hard money lenders. I know about private money lenders. Like I know about those things for real estate. But when it came to getting business lines of credit and credit cards, I necessarily didn't know how that worked for real estate. So I needed to learn both of those pieces. And so, basically how you and I met, I came across a YouTube channel. I came across a YouTube channel and went down that rabbit hole and learned some stuff and elevated my personal credit. My personal credit was okay, but there were definitely some things I needed to do. I needed to lower my utilization. I got back into, okay, if I'm getting ready to apply for some things, I need to make sure that my utilization is under 30%, ideally under 20%, ideally under 10%.
Right.
So I worked my way through that. I paid, so at that point, I just worked off of getting my utilization down. And then I got, I learned about the different banks and researched the different banks and based off of what it was that I was looking to do. And, and just, got my personal credit in order first and then just kind of built it from there. I mean, now I can say I turned down a business line of credit.
Discovering the benefits of business credit, you knew what you did in the past, you had some challenges because it impacted your personal credit, which kept you from making some other moves, right? But you had, luckily, you had the income. Don't quit your day job, people, if you don't have to. Income is very important. Streams of income, very important. Business credit just helps you increase those streams of income because you can make moves and make bigger investments that you otherwise would not have been able to make if you were only relying on your wallet.
Right.
Think about, instead of just relying on your income, your wallet, you got Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. Now, I get it. Bank of America and Wells Fargo are in some hot water right now, for lack of a better term, right? But imagine having the biggest pockets in the country backing you up and funding your dreams, funding your experiments, and sometimes even your livelihood, right? Because these properties can turn into more cash flow, which can then turn and improve your lifestyle. But go back ahead with your journey of discovering business credit. And so let me ask you this. After funding things out of pocket for so many years, what impact did being finally exposed to business credit properly, what impact did that have on your new business and your ability to scale?
Major. Because now I'm able to, one, I know about utilization. So now I make sure, because obviously I'm having to be a personal guarantor of, of that, of the business credit. And so I make sure that my utilization is in line. I'm not having to put business things on my personal credit, which was affecting my utilization. Now I actually am able to put it on the business side. And when I go for additional credit, I'm not, the impact of being in utilization hell is not there. I'm recently at the point where I turned down a business line of credit. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, couldn't even find this stuff. And now I'm saying no. And they're asking me, why am I saying no? I'm like, your terms are too high. Like, I need better terms. Okay, well, let us go back to the drawing board and see if we can get you better terms. Like, I didn't even think I would be there at this point. But that's where I am. But yeah,
yeah, that's amazing. So there was a couple of things that you touched on that I want to be able to shed some light on for those who were listening and they're trying to figure out some of the vocabulary that we're using. So you mentioned personal guarantor, right? So for those that are listening, personal guarantor is when you are basically applying for a business credit product, like a credit card or a line of credit, maybe in an auto loan. And because the business is, let's say it's new or may not have the revenue or just maybe the nature of that bank, they need someone else to basically offer a sense of security for them when they're lending the money. So instead of being able to get that particular credit product off of the strength of the business itself, you're acting as the individual. They're going to ask the owner, hey, can you essentially co-sign for your business? So in the event that the business defaults, it can't maintain its payment obligations, we can then come after you as an individual and recoup our alleged losses that way. And what will happen when you have a personal guarantee, this is great, like Lameka spoke to, what happens is that you'll still get the line of credit, you'll still get that loan, that house, what have you, but it does not show up on your personal credit. It's only going to show up on the business side. Now, if there's a situation where you default or the business defaults, typically within like 60 to 90 days of straight up non-payment, then it will show up on your personal credit as a late payment. So that's what happens when you PG something. That is like that's the glory behind it. You get access to funding without hurting your personal credit, and you're able to even in some instances max out those lines of credit without it hurting your personal credit, if necessary.
Right.
With utilization is basically, how would you put it, Lameka? What is credit card utilization? If you had to explain this to me.
It could be heaven or it could be hell. So $1,000 credit card limit, and you're at you're at $500 on that $1,000 credit card limit. You're at a 50% utilization. So you need to either have that card under $300 when it reports to the bureau. Now, this is the other thing that I made sure I paid attention to, and I had an aha moment during the pandemic, is I always paid my card on time. But what I have realized is the closing statement date that is more important than the due date, because when you're in this world, obviously, like yesterday, I think I had a credit card payment that was due. So I paid the minimum there, but I knew, I was like, I'm in a rush. I need to go ahead and pay this minimum, but I know when my closing statement date is. So I'm going to go back, and I went back today and I paid what it needed to be so that my closing statement balance looked good, so that I could hide my utilization. So that's a thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, is that, yeah, they're paying on the due date, but then if I go to Target or wherever and I run it back up, and I got this $1,000 credit card and I spend additional $300, and I only paid it down to $300, I only paid it down $300. Now it's going to report at $600 on my closing statement date. So now I'm at a 60% utilization. determine utilization. But the big part of utilization is make sure you know when your statement date is.
So there were two key things that you mentioned, right? I would say in simple terms, your utilization is how much of your credit limit you're using. You gave a great example. If you have 1,000 and you're using 500, that means you're at 50% utilization. The great thing about this is also why having higher limits on your credit cards come into play, because it's the game of percentages. If you're only using 500 of 1,000, you're at 50. But if you're using $500 of $10,000, you're only at 5%, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, I think 5%, which looks a hell of a lot better. The other thing
the quickest way to increase that, to get a higher to lower your utilization is to ask for a credit line increase.
Absolutely. Credit, always get a credit line increase. If you got a rich auntie, uncle, mama who can add you on to one of their credit cards, you definitely want to do that. The more available credit you have, the better. And on two other things you mentioned are the two most important dates when it comes to your credit cards. Your due date, that's when you got to make that minimum payment. Always pay a little bit more than the minimum payment. I'll say make 125% of the minimum payment. So if the minimum payment is 100, try and pay 125. And then the closing date, because that's when your credit card company tells TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian how much you owe them. So that's where, like Lameka said, a lot of people get tripped up between the due date and the statement date. They think because they made that minimum payment, they're good to go. Or even some people pay off the credit card in full by the due date and then keep using it and wonder why their utilization is still high. It's because you ran up the card before the statement date.
Right.
So
yes.
What you were saying about being able to hide the utilization, use the business credit without impacting your personal credit, and your personal credit card utilization is what you were talking about before.
Yes. Yeah. So that was, that was a big part of it. So once I learned the whole, what my statement closing dates are, I have reminders in my phone, like, I have a spreadsheet that I look at to make sure that I know when those statement dates are. Now I can rattle them off because, I have the, I have the spreadsheet, but, that was a big part. There was something that you asked me and I was like, oh, I forgot to say that part. That was, I think you were, now I can't even remember what it was. You were asking me something like how I got to mobile homes and I went back to the real estate, but there was something about credit. Oh, okay. So you were asking me how did that translate to getting into mobile homes? And then I gave you the story of my backstory. I've actually started with real estate before I ever came to Hi Goddess.
Yep.
So what I knew I wanted to get back into mobile homes, and this all ties into credit. I knew I wanted to get back into real estate, and I didn't want to do it in the manner that I did before. And I thought, I don't want to have to come up with as much money. And also, which ties in Hi Goddess, I wanted to do a business that did not require me to do social media because I don't like social media. I know we're on YouTube and other platforms, but I don't like social media. And so that was a big part of me going back into real estate was because I wanted a business that wasn't dependent on me having to do something with social media. And so
knowing who you are is very important in this journey. Knowing who you are, what fits your personality, because that's the great thing. Like you mentioned, we spoke about this before. You can be the architect of your life. If you don't like doing it for your business, choose a business you don't got to do it. Seems simple. Great tip.
Yeah, so that was a big part of it. And so I happened to be on YouTube one day and YouTube served me up a video about mobile homes. I thought, how did I not think of this? How is it that mobile homes have been in my face my entire life and I never thought about it? I'm originally from Alabama. Alabama, I think, has the most mobile homes of any other state, probably outside of Texas or somewhere like that. And my parents had even bought my sister a mobile home for college. And when she was done with it, they sold the mobile home. Like, how was I not thinking this? I don't know how I wasn't thinking this. So once I saw that video, I was like, oh, I can totally do that. I know I can absolutely do that. I bought a course that day. I took 2 days off from work and I devoured that course. I did exactly what they said. And then I was like, okay, I have some more questions. And so I thought, I need to find me somebody, I need to find a mentor. And so I went back and I researched some more. So that was in September, October of 2020. So I took October 2020, and then I kind of, it was a holiday season, so I really didn't do anything. And then at the first of the year, I did start. They were saying call mobile home parks is what they were saying. Call mobile home parks, talk to the managers, yada, yada, yada. But we were in the midst of COVID. Like, you weren't getting people so that information didn't work. I'm not a cold call person. I don't like cold calling. So the other thing they said to do was to drive for dollars. So you would drive through mobile home communities and you would see, who had signs out or what, home looked like it was needed to be for sale or, that kind of thing. So I did that. That really wasn't my thing. And then the other thing that they mentioned was to put out bandit signs. I was like, okay, I can do that. Now I was nervous because, I didn't, you putting out these bandit signs. And so I put out bandit signs, and this was probably about January. I put out bandit signs, and that worked for me. I was like, okay, this is a natural fit for me. I'm comfortable doing this, and people are calling. Like, as soon as I would put those bandit signs out, people were calling. Actually, I think the first phone call I got turned out to be my very first deal. So she called me in January. And she said, hey, me and my husband are going to be moving, and we want to sell our mobile home. And I talked to her and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, we're not ready to sell right now. We'll be ready to sell in March. And I want to sell it to you, or I want you to sell it. And that is exactly what happened. Did my first two first mobile home deals on the same day in March. And I will backtrack that I did go and hire a mentor that I was able to talk to on a daily basis, able to text, because I needed more than just a course. I needed to actually talk to someone. And so I did
investing
that.
In yourself and investing in a mentor makes all the difference a lot of times. It's only so much a course can do and only so much a course can give you. Now, let me ask you this. How has the process been since incorporating business credit?
Oh, game changer. Now deals come to me and I'm just like, okay, yeah, we can do that. I mean, now I just need to underwrite it and I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Or now it's not me necessarily having to wholesale a deal. If it's something that I want, I'm like, okay, yeah, we can take that home on and we will actually purchase it. And then if we decide that we don't want it, then we will sell it. Now, I will say the reason why I got into the two main reasons why mobile homes were like, yes, this is for me. One, I didn't have to do social media. And two, it did not require any money. It didn't require a large upfront amount of money to start. I literally started the business with probably less than $500. That was my gas and me buying bandit signs. And that's where the majority of the money went. I probably spent more gas than I did on bandit signs because I drove around, that kind of a thing. But yeah, so for, I didn't actually buy my first mobile home until 2020. No, I bought my first mobile home in 2021.
2021.
I bought my first mobile home in June of 2021, but I had been wholesaling homes up until that point. And then the first home that I bought in June of 2021, I did a fix and flip on that home. So I bought it, fixed it up, and then I sold it for cash to someone else, is what I did. And so I primarily wholesaled. I did that one fix and flip, and then I did majority of wholesaling in 2021. By actually in June of 2021 is when I paid off all of my debt. So mobile homes is what got me debt free, which is another reason why I said, "Hi guys, you hold on."
Let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah. which is why another reason why I had to tell Hi guys to hold on, because you are capital intensive. So you hold on. I'm gonna come back over there to you, girl. But right now we're gonna go over here with these mobile homes.
So now we got the combination. We got like the perfect storm. We got the combination of a positive cash flowing opportunity, which is mobile homes, which help you eliminate your debt. And now we're even using credit, which some people say call it debt, turning that into cash to just eliminate the debt.
Yes. That. All of that. All of that. All of that. All of that.
Debt free. Come on now. Come on now. We using debt to get debt free.
Right. No, Dave Ramsey may not say I'm debt free because I still owe on my mortgage. However, I'm okay with that.
I was gonna say, we know Dave Ramsey's #1 source of income is real estate. Right. How he in real estate with absolutely no debt? After how many decades he in real estate with absolutely no debt?
Right. You got some private money lenders out there somewhere. It ain't all coming from you. But anywho, so yes, debt, yeah, completely debt free. Mobile homes is what got me debt free. Yeah.
And now you're able to just move on a whim, whether it's cash, but why use your cash when you can just use someone else's money that is going to get paid back through the deal, and you can just keep the cycle going.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that's what So the credit has definitely been beneficial. I was evaluating a mobile home park that I wanted to buy. And so obviously there is a earnest money and down payment, that would have been required, and all of that was going to come through business credit. Whereas, that wasn't an option before. And so, learning about business credit and having my personal credit where it needs to be has definitely been a game changer.
You're just able to move with speed. So, Lameka, now that you're in, so I'm assuming that you're still constantly looking for deals?
Absolutely.
So how can people get in contact with you? Let's say they have a mobile home park, some land that they're interested in working out a deal with you. How can folks find you? How can they get in touch with you? And we'll also have this information in the description at the bottom.
Absolutely. So, that's a good question. In my head, I'm like, I should have isolated this. So you can for sure reach me at, let's see here. You can reach me at info@texasmobilehomesolutions.com. Although it says Texas Mobile Home Solutions, I buy mobile homes all over. I will say specifically, I buy mobile homes in the Sun Belt area. If you are not in that area, then Sun Belt is typically, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, North Carolina, Louisiana, are those, pretty much your southern states. Even if you're not in those areas, I work with mobile home park owners they're always looking to purchase mobile homes. So I'll be more than happy to JV and do a wholesale deal with you. But info@texasmobilehomesolutions.com is how you can find me specifically for mobile homes. And then obviously, they can find me on my YouTube channel at The Real About Entrepreneurship.
Great. And if for whatever reason having issues with that, leave a comment below. I'll make sure she'll get to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Lameka, it was great talking to you. I absolutely love the story. The ups and downs of real estate, the ups and downs of operating a very niche, much needed clothing brand, and being able to serve and just being a person of execution and going out and getting it every day. Thanks so much for coming by. Y'all make sure that you go to The Real About Entrepreneurship. Check out everything she has going on. Check out the 3-part series that we have on there where we actually guide you through setting up your business so you can get access to that business credit, business funding, so that you can also potentially use mobile homes to get debt free. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.